and thanks for tuning in. Today I'm chatting to Kitty Bruce-Gardyne, who is the founder of Scottish Textile Showcase. Originally set up to give people special tours around the textile mills of Scotland, the Scottish Textile Showcase is now a retail destination in the centre of Edinburgh. And this chat with Kitty comes directly from her store. She's going to tell you all about the amazing brands and makers that she sells in her store, all of which make in Scotland. So here you go. So Kitty, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you.
How long ago was it that we first spoke and you were doing your Scottish textile tours?
Well, I think very early on when you were just beginning Make It British. And I can't honestly remember how many years ago that was, but I do remember hearing about you and thinking, I really need to talk to this lady because she sounds really interesting. And she's very much about what I'm about. And yeah, she stands for kind of what I stand for, only I'm up here in Scotland. So
Exactly. And I've still not been on one of your tours, which is really shameful. But shall we start with that? Do you want to tell everyone, how the tours came about and also what your background is?
sure. So I think with where all this began, and it's quite because we're so just to set the scene, I'm up here in Edinburgh, sitting at the moment in my shop, the Scottish Textiles Showcase, which has really come about after years of development. We came up to, I used to live in Italy, so I suppose design had a, there one was very much that made in Italy brand is so
Yeah.
strong. Italians are very, very proud of their own craftsmanship and that must have sort of seeped into my brain at some level. And that was Milan, British Chamber of Commerce. I was also before that working for a walking company in Tuscany and Umbria called Alternative Travel Group, and doing walking tours and discovering Florence. Well, not just Florence, but rural Italy, and getting to know rural Italy really well in that sort of north of Rome, south of Bologna, that area. And the walking actually is an important part of the story because when I came back to the UK, and then we moved up to Scotland because my husband's from Scotland, and we ended up in Edinburgh. Um, I began with an ex-colleague, to look at walking tours in Scotland, and we were keen to develop a walking route in the Scottish borders because it seemed like an obvious place. It's beautiful. You've got the Tweed Valley, and it's an area that's not been very discovered, relatively undiscovered compared to the Highlands, and great for day walks from Edinburgh. And it was when we were developing these routes, these walking routes down in the borders, that I stumbled across these wool mills. And
In Hoyk and places like that.
exactly, Hoyk, Selkirk, the Tweed Valley, Walkerburn, Innerleithen. And in those days, Scotland's oldest wool mill was in Innerleithen, and it was Carey Mills that was owned by the Ballantines at one.
Yes. So what year was this,
Oh, I
Kitty?
knew you were going to ask me that. Well, it was probably about 2000 and maybe 10.
Yeah, because I think that mill shut not long after I started Make It British.
Yes,
So that was 2011.
yes, and that
Yeah.
was, and I took some really, and then I started, and I just was looking at the history of these mills. The borders have been such an important place for making for the industry in the sort of through the 1800s, 1900s, and then sort of 1980s, everything was being made overseas, and it was the beginning of, well, it had already happened, already started. Mills were shutting, and it really hit me that there was this really high level of craftsmanship they were making for the haute couture companies
Yeah.
around, fashion brands around the world, and yet they were finding it impossible to keep going. And you had that Carey mill. I took um, some customers from, they were staying at the Balmoral, and I think he was from Brazil, and he was a really wealthy businessman. And we were heading down to the borders, and I'd sort of said, well, we could visit Johnston's, we can go to Hoyk and or Lacaran in Scotland, and he said, and I said, there's this other, Kerr Lee, who made the Ballantine label. He said, oh, Ballantine, that label is so important. in
Is
South
it big
America.
in Brazil, is it?
Yeah, I think it's Brazil, and he said, "Let's go there," and we went there, and he couldn't believe that the paint was sort of falling, off the ceiling, and this mill, this prestigious label in South
Yeah.
America, in Brazil, which was so important to him, and had huge kudos, and was associated with quality. That this mill where they were being made was in this condition, and I almost said to him, "Well, you buy it, you could save it, uh,
But that's years and years,
but that
decades of heritage in those there walls though,
oh,
isn't
I
there?
know, and then they did a management buyout, and then
Yeah, I remember.
and then it shut, and yeah, and that really hit home to me about how important, Scotland is sitting here, Edinburgh, these visitors come to Edinburgh and they want to engage with this story, this tradition. The quality is right up there, and yet we don't tell the story here in Edinburgh. It's not represented. So I was doing the tours, and then I thought, actually, what we need because again, if people haven't got time to take a day out, and it's a big day. You go down to the borders. It takes a day every time, come back, see a few mills.
Yeah,
And I thought we need to represent this story here in Edinburgh. And so
yeah.
myself and a friend were looking. We spent over a year, 2 years researching how we could do this, and then an opportunity arose through Edinburgh World Heritage in the Tron Kirk. The Tron is a really old church on the Royal Mile,
Yeah.
and it's got Scotland's oldest street right underneath it, 1503. So our sort of shop, which we started off right at the back of the Tron, behind an exhibition. So we were very hidden, not very visible to the public. And we were, because it was an old, higher listed building, you weren't allowed to put lots of signage on the outside. So we were hard to find. But when people found us, they really loved what they found, and they said, "This is great. This is we can actually we know that in here." So our USP is that everything's made in Scotland. That is
Amazing. I
what
mean,
we
it's what is, like, shocking is that that didn't exist before in Edinburgh, that there wasn't a place that you could go, a shop that you can go purely to buy all of the beautiful textile and craft products that are made in
Mm,
Scotland
mm,
itself. Because I
mm.
hear that from so many Scottish manufacturers that in the retail destinations in Edinburgh, so many of the shops are selling products which are actually made from, Chinese cloth and
Yeah,
all sorts of things. It's such a shame. So it's wonderful what you're doing, and you're recording this from your shop as well, which is brilliant.
yeah,
So if people are listening to this, we are also recording it. It's going to be on YouTube, so people will be able to see what your shop looks like. Do you want to just spin your camera around?
yeah. I will.
So
I will. So
thing-
within, as I say, within the shop, everything is made here in Scotland. Mixed fibres, perhaps being imported. The cashmere. But so I'll just give you a little. So that's what's rather nice is that looking out onto the street, you can't quite see it because there's a lorry in the way, but we've got the bagpipe maker across the road. We've got a kilt maker across the road. He's next door. And then we've got
Brilliant.
Mackenzie Leather, who are a leather maker. They're next door to them. So we're trying to. So we had to move out of the Tron. So we set up there. COVID came along, and the Tron shut, and then we decided, right, we're going to move premises, and find somewhere with our own door, because that was part of the problem. We just
Kitty, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to stop you there because my husband has not done what he's supposed to do and kept the dogs
let
under
the dog in.
control.
All right, okay,
I've got the
go
dog
for it.
scratching at the cat flap. Hang on. Little monkey. Oh, oh.
Oh, look, oh,
Here he is.
sweet. Oh,
He's a little monkey, aren't you? Right, you can go to
what's
sleep
he
now.
called?
Ferris.
What?
Like the film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. My kids like 80s films, but everyone
You
thinks
know,
he's called Ferret.
Kate, it's funny because I can't get over how many people in the textiles industry have dogs. I mean, you talk to Di Gilpin, and she was here doing a Meet the Makers, and suddenly somebody brought their dog in, she dropped everything. Like, let's talk. Everybody, all these weavers, they've all got their dogs, and it's just it's great. It's so nice.
I've always said a book in the making is a really lovely photography book, which is Dogs in Factories, because I love it when I go to a factory or a mill and they've got their dog in there. I'm sure you've seen a few of those.
Well, I took Willow and our other dog, Garty. Willow was a puppy, and they ended up in Ingles Buck and Wool Mill, and they had their big Labrador, and Willow was a puppy. And I've got this hilarious picture of them, the three of them, in the mill. It's just so
Send it to
funny.
me. I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
So what were we saying then? You were talking about the location for the shop. So
yeah.
that your current location, when did you move there?
So COVID came. So we were doing fine in the Tron, but we were not visible. And then COVID came along, the Tron shut, and it has still not reopened. And it's changed hands. Edinburgh World Heritage have moved out, and it's a question. And I just, come that Christmas, well, sort of 2020, and I hadn't been able to reopen even during that August period when other shops were opening on the mile. I couldn't. Um, and so I just thought, right, I need to be independent. You need to be master of your own destiny.
Yeah.
So I started looking, and I just thought, God, I must be the only person looking for a retail outlet in the middle of COVID. Nobody was thinking about opening a shop last Christmas. But we found this place, and as I say, the area is good. It's just off the Royal Mile. The mile is about a 30-second walk up the hill, and we've got twice as much space. So we've got a basement area as well. We've got this lovely, and I'll just ping the camera out. So we've got space for our huge Meet the Makers map.
I love that Meet the Makers
So
map.
2 by 2, so that's good. We've got a nice little area there. We've got down here we've got this sort of sofa here, and at the moment we've got Araminta's collection laid out there. We've got cashmere over there, and then MYB lace, and
Oh, wow.
we've got two shop windows. I don't know if this is working or not. And
Yep, 360-degree
yeah,
tour we're
there's
getting here.
we've got all our wool, dye gilpin wool, lots and lots of scarves, so many scarves. And that's Rosie's collection, Rosie Sugden's collection is just here. Um,
Which I love.
and
So
yeah,
you
so we've got a lot of space. We've now got a studio. We're converting downstairs one of the rooms into a photo studio, so we can do all our own photography, because we just at the moment we've been taking photographs in our shop window for all our social media, and every time we do it, we have to sort of dismantle the shop window. We just thought, actually, we've got a space downstairs. We can set up lighting, so that's what we're in the middle of doing at the moment.
so I know that your shop and the way, you talk, it is all about the makers and the people behind each brand. How do you select who goes in the shop, and what are some of the highlights or the kind of favorite pieces that you have?
Yeah, we're not, I mean, the shop's grown organically, and I think it started, so now we've got sort of say 20 makers. So I think what's important in the shop, what we're doing here, so that big map, the Meet the Makers map, is a map of the wool mills that you can visit. So that was our starting point. It was so we would start when we started off. It was like, okay, so there's so many makers out there. How do we get them on the map? Okay, well, we'll put on the map the ones that you can, in non-COVID times, go along and visit. So we're encouraging textiles tourism. We're encouraging people to go and discover how things are made. Just like with the whiskey, where's the whiskey made? Go and see the distillery. We're saying, okay, you've got different regions of Scotland, like down in the Scottish borders, Ayrshire, the Harris Tweed story, which is huge. And then you've got the Shetland Islands, Shetland story, and up the northeast, Elgin, around there. So you've got these
Yeah.
different areas of Scotland. So that map is talking about mills who are weaving or knitting. And then we've got within the shop, we've got products that are made by those mills, and then we've also got smaller artisans who aren't a destination in their own right. They're making from home, and they're working with a mill, but so they're not on the map. but we represent everybody. Like sort of here, for example, you've got Rosie Sugden. So we show for every maker that we've got, we talk about where they're based, and then we sort of give a bio, a little synopsis of who they are and what they do and why they do what they do. So we're putting people on the map. And I,
Yeah, I love it. I
yeah,
love it. It's everything that I love, Kitty,
yeah,
and,
yeah, I
I
know, I
can't believe
know.
I've not been up to Scotland yet to go on one of your tours.
Well, yeah, I mean, just come to Edinburgh, and because that actually took some clients down before Christmas who wanted to do a tour, and I said, it's COVID. I mean, the mills at the moment are not letting, they're not offering
Yeah,
the tours they did because we're waiting for everything to get back to where we were. But we were able to offer, I was able to offer some kind of tour, and in fact, people started off here and just we've got film footage. I should have the video on. So we've got film footage playing of the mills, so people get an idea of what a wool mill looks like, and
yeah,
that's usually playing up there. And for us, like there's a big image behind me here of that's Luscantire Bay, and that time, and then we've
beautiful.
got in there a picture of the home of one of the weavers of Donald John Mackay, and then we've got cloth that was woven by Donald John Mackay, so we can really tell, we can say from the land comes the cloth. So you look at that picture, and you can see how the Scottish landscape plays a big part in, I think, a lot of the products that are
Yeah,
made here, because the light and the land is so important, and the colours, they inspire everything that's made. So tying in that
yeah.
story.
I mean, I know you say that, and sadly we know that a lot of the mills have closed down, but actually there are still a lot for the, small land size of Scotland compared to the UK. There's a lot more of your original textile industry up there that is preserved compared to other regions. Why do you think that has been the case?
I don't know, maybe because there's such a, that made in Scotland brand, if it is a brand, is so, it's got, people understand how the importance of it. And I think you've got the industry are really somebody like James Sugden, who I met when I was starting to do those tours, 2004. And at that point, he was working for Johnson's of Elgin based in Hawick as managing director. The first time I met James, he was giving a talk down in Hawick when they'd opened their visitor centre at Johnson's. And James was a huge help in inspiring, me and a lot of other artisans, funnily enough, who are here. I think you have people like that who they can see that you've got these craftsmanship skills that are dying out, and the importance of apprenticeships and sort of regeneration,
Yeah,
and for the young to come in and learn. And I think those people can be key in helping an awareness, and to keep that made in Scotland brand up. I would go back to Italy. Italians are really good at that. They just know,
so true.
get it, and I think made in Scotland does have a kudos, and perhaps those, because a lot of those mills, as we say, were shutting. But then, thank thank goodness, the breaks seem to have gone on. But then you get a story like the linen mill. Really sadly, Scotland's last linen mill, in Kirkcaldy, Scottish Linen, and were selling their linen fabrics, and then they shut
They
April
did.
April last year. So,
Yeah.
and I think if it had been, there were just so many things there happening at once, and COVID and Brexit were all coming in together. So it's up to people, and I think COP26 is really helping to create an awareness of shop local. So
Yeah.
I do. I think people are beginning to understand now how important it is to invest in your local makers and in the local craftsmanship, which is here.
So you're definitely seeing that that's the case, are you? I mean, I would imagine, did you get many visitors from Glasgow coming to Edinburgh when they were up for COP26?
Yeah, it
To
was really
visit
interesting because
you?
there are so many. There were no, Glasgow was sold out. There was nowhere to stay, so a lot of people stayed here in Edinburgh, and there's a hotel literally across the road. And at the beginning of COP, it was really quiet, and then as it began to wind down, all those people who'd come from over the world. to present at COP or to go and listen, started finding us. And it was just wonderful listening to what they were talking about, and the need for, and I mean everything we're about. So on our shop window it says natural fibres made in Scotland. So that really, people get immediately what we're about, and it's all about
Yeah.
local provenance.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so so as well as having your shop, you do also sell online. So if anyone is listening to this and is so inspired to go and invest in Scottish textiles. In fact, I've got my Johnston's cashmere jumper on today as well. Had to be wearing Scottish textiles to do this interview with you today,
Thank
Kitty.
you.
Um,
Yeah.
you've got an online store as well now, haven't you? Selling
Yes.
all is
So
everything from the store on the online store as well.
just about everything. I mean, we started, and again, when we were in the Tron, we were actually very complacent because the visitors love what they found, and so we were too busy selling face to face to make up a website. And then when COVID came along, we made the website. That has been in the making. It's got developed. So then we had to get a lot of the imagery. So not most of the stock is online, yeah, and things like Elizabeth Martin's coats. In fact, I've got my Elizabeth Martin Paris tweed jacket on. Uh,
Brilliant.
which I've had for years, years and years, and it's still just as good as the day I bought it.
An
Um,
investment, all of it. It's all I mean, I find that with my Johnson's jumpers.
yeah,
They last forever. They're a real investment piece.
so there you can see all our coats by Elizabeth, and I'm just going to flick back there, and again, I don't know, perhaps we can do it, but the
Yeah, we
fantastic
can
one,
see it. It looks amazing.
yeah, and then we've got around that, we've got one of our beautiful. So this is what we have a lot of fun doing, is pairing. So you've got your Harris Tweed and that Harris Tweed story, which really is. And I mean, I work with Harris Tweed as well because I make my scarves, tweed and cashmere scarves, under Kitty Mackenzie, which is my maker's name. But what I think customers love is hearing the stories about the making of the product. So not just the mill where it was made, but how Scotland is involved in
Inspires
the
it.
product. And here you've got the Bacca scarves,
I
which
love the backer
we've
stuff.
got, and they've got the Fair Isle design, which is knitted in. And she's only working in 5 colours, so they're just traditional colours, going back to old times. But all her designs are just the 5 colours.
Stunning.
Um,
Yeah.
it's those stories which we have a lot of fun in putting together, and like the shop window, how we what we put in the shop window, what we put together,
And you sell
and
yarn. Sorry, Kitty.
sorry,
You
go
sell
on.
yarn as well, don't you?
Yeah, so we've got I'll swing the camera around there. So I'll just bring this book over, which is a bestseller as well. We've got yarn, we've got knitting patterns. So
Ah,
this book, so Di Gilpin, who came, we did a Meet the Maker. You can see her name. We did a Meet the Maker event with Di Gilpin and Sheila just before Christmas. Oops, I don't know if you can see that. And we sell Di's wool. So all these beautiful colours, all inspired by Scotland. So they've got great names like Crowdy, which is a cheese. Crowdy cheese. There's your Crowdy.
yeah.
Crowdy cheese. And then Ha. Ha is, we're sold out of Ha. But that's the mist that comes into Edinburgh, into Scotland. You get this
Oh, is
sea
that what it's
mist.
called?
It's called the Heart, Haar, and Di's designed a colour called Heart. It's a lovely grey, and it's just great because people what does it say? It sells out very quickly. And then we've got her knitting patterns. So the designs, the Gansey pattern.
Is a traditional stitch.
Yes. So what's very interesting about it? It's replicated in what was called the Gansey jumpers, like a Guernsey jumper, um, which the fishermen would wear. I'm going to show you a picture of the map in here. The fishermen would wear, so their wives would knit their jumpers, and they would knit symbols, a design like the tree of life, and depending
Yeah.
on where they were based, the shape of the tree could look different depending on which part of the coast, they came from. So you could almost tell from the jumper, if they were shipwrecked,
Where
the jumper would tell so much about where where the sailor had actually come from.
you've got to be a pretty good knitter to do some of those stitches there. My knitting's not up to that standard.
Well, Di Gilpin is that she would have you knitting again, Kate, because when we did our Meet the Maker, people were coming in going, "Oh, I haven't knitted for ages," and they'd leave the shop with a pattern and and wool, and she's like, "Right, come on, you're going to get to it," and
Brilliant.
she inspires people, and that's just as a person, she and Sheila are very, very inspiring, and that's what's
Mm,
so lovely, how one maker can inspire others to make as well. I think
yeah.
that's great.
One final question then. Are you still doing the tours, and can people book a tour with you if they want to?
Yes. So I mean, the thing is, COVID permitting. So if
Yeah.
somebody, I mean, the tours. Uh, so it's not like a minibus going down there. We're not doing those because I'm so busy in the shop now. That's really taken over, and that is
Yeah.
my. If I was spending every day going down to the borders, I wouldn't be. I couldn't be here doing what. And I've got two fabulous members of staff who are just as passionate about it as I am. I suppose if people want to do a tour, they can get in touch, and if I can't do it, I'll put them in touch with somebody who can. And I can
Brilliant.
also give them the destinations because we're very happy to share knowledge. If people just want to get on the train, take themselves down to the borders, we'll tell them where they can go and who's open. Because the Karen at the moment are changing. They're it's interesting. Quite a lot of these mills aren't offering quite what they were offering before. So
Yeah. Yeah.
their visitor centre has moved, and Le Caron are about to reopen theirs. So we're just waiting at the moment to find out quite what's on offer. But again, with
Yeah.
Tweed, if people want to go up to Harrison Lewis, we recommend weavers for them to go and visit, and the Harris Tweed Authority and their brand room and what they can do. So we're sharing knowledge, and
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
Amazing. Ah, Kitty, you're an absolute superstar. Thank you so much for joining me on the Make It British podcast.
Well,
Kitty
Kate,
Bruce
thank
Gardyne.
you. Thank you very much. And what I'd like to finish by saying is we are so happy and excited to be part of Make It British and to be members because for us that's really like the icing on the cake. We're really really happy about that, and we're so looking forward to working with Make It British and just for this year finding out what's going on. We're really excited about that.
Brilliant. Well, we got Made in UK Day coming up on March the 9th,
Yes.
which includes Scotland, obviously.
Yes, yes, yes. So lots to look forward to.
Brilliant. Kitty, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye.
Bye.